let's talk about the big U-turn. This lady's not for turning, said Margaret Thatcher, but Rugby League's own Margaret Thatcher. They've U-turned. 2 weeks ago, you're out. Last week, you're back in. So I don't know what's changed in 2 weeks, apart from some MPs getting involved and petitions and people getting upset. But whatever was right 2 weeks ago is apparently wrong, or was wrong is right now.
There's two issues with this, and one is, obviously your expertise is why you're here. The first is, what does that look like as a leadership? That you've spent the time you've had saying you've done what you've done, saying it's an open and transparent process, and you've looked at all the evidence and this is how it's got to be. And then the first sign of resistance, you've gone, well, actually, no, it isn't. Let's just cave in. So I reckon there's a whole leadership issue. And we talked about, the way Ralph came over on Sky the other week. Now it looks like he's been thrown under the bus because he's been asked to justify something that they've now turned around and said, no, you're right, it can't be justified. So I think there's an issue for the game about what leadership looks like, and that is terrible. I think the other thing is the underlying things that we spoke about when that first decision was made is something that you are first-hand involved in, and that is the level of and quality of talent that the game is producing at the moment. And I think when we heard people like Dave Rotherham and Paul Medley trying to talk about why the decision to only have 10 had been made, some of it was to protect the community game, some of it was to keep the quality threshold high, some of it was because participation levels are relatively low. You're involved in all of that. You've got your own elite academy rugby school, which is not league or uni, it's just trying to upskill.
Yeah.
You're involved in a community club. You've taken the side through from sort of under 13 to under 18 on that cusp of, are they all going to become open age players, or are they going to give the game up? You've been involved in academies at Bradford, bringing young talent through. What is the actual honest picture of where we are with the production of talent?
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of things here, Phil. No doubt that and we've had a rough old 18 months, haven't we? Obviously, to think about numbers, are they there, are they not? I think there's no doubt. When I heard the decision, I thought there was going to be something else coming there. So made a decision. I thought, I'm waiting for this. This is the pathway of the right. Our focus is going to be this and this. Participation would be a huge one. And within a framework of this, to get it back to wherever. I think there's a lot of things been around the game. It's been around for a long time. Even me going back to Leeds, because even then we still did a lot with the academy when we were coaching first team. But a lot of that, there was quite a lot of clubs not funding it properly. That there was using money other than generally put it in the first team. And I see that there's a lot more volunteers around that sort of level academy, whereas probably more paid people. And there was the one thing I wanted to hear from the RFL. It's almost I look at them and they've made a decision, and then I want them to stick up for themselves to say, no, this is the reason why this has been made. Whoever it was, Bradford, OKR, Cass, these are the reasons. You're in red in whatever areas they are. You've been told or you've been tried to help them. This is the reason why we're doing it. I think they should do that. I think there's still with the leadership of the game. It still looks like to me the RFL are picking up some crumbs. And are Super League going to fund all this? Are they going to fund it? Are they going to fund academies? Are they? I hope they are, but they might not. Are they going to fund Championship League? Is it all going to change? Are you going to be able to have to fund your own? Because at the moment, I see Yorkshire Juniors from my own perspective that there's lots of kids are on the roster, and I probably look at them thinking you've got a big pot of money there. They need to get the community clubs involved. Whereas I could use an example. The previous community clubs, when I was playing, I went back to my amateur club, Rugby Celtic. Obviously, a well-established club, 1879, but it lost its juniors. It had one team left, so I got back and I basically stole Leeds' little program. It was 4 primary schools, 6-week course. Got them from week 1 to week 6 was the game. They all played together. We went for one under-8s team. We ended up getting under-8s and under-9s. Alex Walmsley were in the first one. I won't drop his name. There was others as well, but I had nothing to do with it.
Everyone's program takes credit for Alex Walmsley. It's only good games.
I know, go and play. But anyway, it wasn't about that. It was about us creating under-8, and we did it every year. Within 7 years, we had probably 8 teams, and it got to a point where there was probably about 13 teams at the top, and it ebbs and flows. The best one we ever did was touch, where we then got, because you could do it quicker. You did it in 3 where you got 12 primary schools. This massive thing happened. That's the way to recruit these kids. The game is too tough. I mean, we've got these little men here now. I've got 2 boys. I had a conversation with someone, an ex-player, saying that Mitch was only about 2 and I'd got him some little golf clubs and he could whack it. And I didn't want to play. You just go and do your own thing. Anyway, wanted to play. I was saying to it. This ex-player, the daft thing about this is I'm going to say to my son, run into that boy as hard as you can and try and tackle him or run into him. And if you cry, I'll rub your head and go, that's what it's all about, son. Like, it's mental. You wouldn't do it. So it's tough as it is. So we need to find a way of getting more players into the sport to where they can look at it on TV and say, oh, I play that. It might be a version of it, but they don't have to be all singing, all dancing, smashing into each other and thinking about completion rates. We need to think of a way of doing that. And that I think it just needs joining up. I'm sure that the RFL haven't just gone, oh, this is what we're doing and nothing else. It looks like to me they've just got the tin hats on at the moment, and then eventually they'll start coming back. We're desperate for some leadership from them, but I'm looking at the Super League thing and thinking, I'm not sure who's calling the next phase. Are they ready to go and say, this is what we're going to do? We're going to get 10,000 kids playing within a year. That's his target. This is what I'd like to do. I'm asking for a job here, but I'd love to have that, that Dave Brailsford number on the going up and getting more kids playing a version of rugby league, and just keep doing that, keep replicating. Then we'll get it bigger. But then the clubs have got to do their job, and obviously the stars in their area are going to be able to attract more people to that sort of thing than me, who no one knows who I am. But it's about where's the joined up thinking. I'm sure it's there. It can't be just, oh, well, we're just giving up. We're just going to cut this academy down, and in 5 years' time it'll be 5, and then we'll just have 1. And then that'll be it. Well, good night. It won't be that, but I hope it's so. But we need to have a bit, come on, where are we going? And I think it must be waiting on funding. Must be. It's got to be.
In terms of the kids that you're seeing, not just in the team that you coach, but the ones that you're coming up against, what is the standard like at sort of top end, under 16, under 18? Are we getting kids who are well enough prepared to go into a Super League environment? How much damage is the scholarship scheme done, if any? Or does that need amending? Scully, whatever people say, just keep ringing every day. We do know exactly what he thinks about every subject. He's put forward his candidature to be chairman of Barla on the basis of the fact that he wants to bring back the Barla that he grew up in, and he doesn't want any kids signed before they're 18. He wants to have great experiences in the community game beforehand. That it's all very well looking at elite academies. Do we need to look at the scholarships as well? Has that raided the game, do you think, too much?
Yeah, I think I understand why they do it, and there's benefits for it as well. There's some of the best people, and Paul Medley is one of these. Paul Medley sat on there. Paul Medley, arguably, is the best Eddie Youth I've ever worked with. Paul Medley, who signed John Bateman and Sam Burgess and all this, they are the ones. We can all see those players. You could be head of youth and go, that's Sam, I'm signing him. It's not them. It's Shirley and Whitehead who no one wanted. And he himself as an head of youth, when I went there and I said, Paul, wait to be head of youth, come on, tell me about. And he basically said, I don't know, I can make a bit of a gamble, but I'm not sure. That's what we're doing. The worst ones I've worked. Oh yeah, I know my players. He's thinking you just signing all the biggest kids you can get. Hold on, here. That's all you're doing. You can't see all of them. You can see something in them, or it might be. And sometimes it comes through, sometimes it doesn't. But I think what happens to some teams, and there's a lot of movement around the younger age group because they're desperate to be signed on, and they feel like if they don't get a scholarship, that's them finished. And we're losing players on the back of that. And then they're moving clubs. So, they're moving to one team in the town because they get signed on from there. And it's like, you're creating a town team, what we used to have before. You're creating it, but all these haven't got enough players now. So they've got 25. And the other 4 haven't got any players. So you've got one team left. And it's just bizarre how there's an education needed for players and for parents and clubs about how we need to do it. And I think the scholarship can hurt some of those teams because if they're taking, I don't mean taking away because they'll be getting better training, more training, which is essential as well. But if you're taking 6 kids away and there's only 7 kids left, what's that coach going to do with those 7? There should be something, another thing underneath that you can bring in. It can be scholarship too. It should be something to try and mop up and help everyone because you don't know where they're going to come from. And we just need to. The trouble we've got, and probably where we are, Phil, in North Leeds, the kids love rugby league. They love the Rhinos. We all go to watch them, but it's probably the second sport. The family's got a bit more either in football or rugby union, and they fit it in around there. And they're not on the radar. They're not on the radar for league because they probably only just started playing at 13, 14. We've got some great players who really are better than some of the kids who've been signed for Academy, I know, because we played against them last year. But that can happen. And I don't think that the foremost of their mind is to become professional. But there's lots of things. I think the numbers are the one. We just got to go at numbers. And then we've got to look at quality coaching and where's the pathway within it. And I'd like to see that there'd be second levels. I don't know if it's a town team or something, but we can encourage them to progress to the next little bit.
I think representative rugby at that age is huge. And even if you're 13 and you get to play for the City of Wigan or the City of Hull or whatever it might be, that's the only representative honour you ever get in your career. That's massive.
Huge.
You put on that shirt that equates to the colours of the professional team.
Yeah.
You can say that badge is you're representing that town. I think that's the level that if you'd have filled that in underneath the elite academies and said, well, someone is going to go to that kind of development officer into town structure, which I think is what Scully felt really benefited him. And whilst there are certain things that you perhaps wouldn't want to go back to, that structure, we seem to have thrown the baby out with the bathwater.
Yeah, I think there's a difference between us and Australia because they have it. They have rugby. The kids have come through, and whether it's school or whatever, they've got that. Where ours probably one division, the rest are all a little bit. And some of the players that kick on are the ones that up below. They've had to do a bit tougher. They might not have won anything, but they've come through. And I think there's an hybrid of it. I was involved about 5 years ago with a Leeds thing. They piloted it. They did it almost like a city of origin, and they tried just to come together for like 6 weeks of training, and then they'd come together and have like North Leeds v South Leeds a game. Obviously, they're looking at players, but it was more about let's see how it goes, and it was brilliant. It was brilliant, led by the club, because obviously now like you said, they've got the badge. Mm-hmm. There's loads of kids there wanting to, obviously they were impressed, but it was more about Brian Mack spoke brilliantly. They'd gone through the coaching and they came to Ed and Brian. The parents were brilliant to the point of saying, I'm a parent myself. Your only job is to support. I'm not looking at your children thinking he's going to be the next, and he railed off his first team. Your job is just to support. It's not to have a go at anyone else. It's not to think he's this or that. My job when they come to us is different. It's to make sure that they're tough enough and all this, but your job is not. Yours to make sure that they enjoy it every day and just remind you of what your role is. It was great. And the players was about aspiring, and it was fantastic. it had to stop because it didn't fit in the framework.
But that was an RFL framework. It wasn't something that
No,
the
no.
club or the club's foundation didn't want to continue.
No,
In
that's
fact, I
right.
think they've rallied for doing more within that school's arena if they're allowed to do it. It's partly, I think, Sport England who fund it saying we don't like elitism, however that is decided. So if you've got these town teams, somebody is deemed to be better than somebody else. But should we not just turn around and say, this is what we need to do to get more people involved and stay in it longer?
There's two things. One is getting them into the sport, and then there's levels within that. And it's not going to be for everyone, but maybe you should have a couple of levels within that. So you I don't want to say A and B, but it's, it could be development and whatever it is. There should be a couple of levels, but one is numbers. Get numbers playing the games so they can look at that TV, and then you're more attractive to sponsors because you've actually, now you can show that you've got 30,000 kids playing. As opposed to, I remember going on the bursary in 2012 to Australia, the RFL. I went round the clubs and speak to someone in Penrith. There were more kids playing rugby league in Penrith than there was in Great Britain.
So I'm going to put you on the spot because I already know the answer to this question. But when you came back from that trip, which was a fact finder and an eye opener, one of the reasons you got the bursary to go on it was to produce a report for the RFL about how you thought junior rugby league should be structured. Has that report been acted on?
No. I sent it in. I did a bit. There's lots of things we did better than them. They just had more kids. It was more about getting more kids playing. So that's me thinking about touch and other things because we're not Australia. We generally they're running around in freezing cold as well. So facilities are poor. So why is that kid going to get off the Xbox and come and go to a muddy field with one floodlight, roll around in mud? I loved that as a kid because there was nothing else. We didn't even have a floodlight. Sound like the Monty Python sketch now. But no,
Something with a torch.
But it was more about that. It was how are we going to this next generation? How are we going to get them into the game? Not only look at it, but play a version of it and get them out of the cold. Let's get skills going. Because the reason why I started, I'll put it in the Rugby School of Excellence, was I'd been involved obviously at Leeds with the scholarship and doing bits of that, maybe Academy. And it started from there. I'm thinking we're getting kids who aren't really rugby players at that age. Some like me, started at 6. We're getting others who come, they pick the ball up and they either grew too big for football or they just found this game and are massive. So they've put them in. Well, how are we going to get them upskilled? Well, we're not going to upskill them by playing the game. The game doesn't teach you the skill. It shows you how to play the game. Don't do this, do this. The community clubs haven't got the time once you start to try and get them to understand the game, and they haven't got the conditions to stand and pass the ball, feel the ball. They're not playing touching playgrounds anymore, as there was a long time ago. It's all football's everywhere. Throw a bag of rugby balls on the field, the kid will walk in and kick it. That's what they do. They just do it. So we need to get our youngsters handling the ball, whether it's this big or this big, doesn't matter, and playing a version of what they're seeing on that TV. And then we'll get them real young. And if they can pass, they have a chance. If they can't pass, they can only play one or two positions. And it's where the big fellas have to go.
Is it about philosophy as well? Because you see a lot of community rugby league, a lot of age groups. Are there too many, without being disparaging to anybody who's taking the time to bring the next generation of kids through, is the philosophy of enjoyment and passing the ball disappearing for some clubs? Is there too much of an emphasis on winning to adapting to the rules as they're currently played, that the big kids need to get the ball all the time and run up the middle? Is there too much pressure on the sidelines with parents, what you were just saying about Brian Mack, that it's got to be about, intimidating kids to win rather than letting them standing back and letting them make mistakes more than anything? Because the thing is with the pass is it's either going to go to hand or it isn't. But you don't want to stop kids trying to do it, and the more pressure you put them under, the less chance they're going to do it.
That's right. Mistakes are part of the game, and that's I would actually speak to a referee the other day who was telling me about a game, and I'm just saying, why do you pull everyone in at the start? Parents as well say, there's nothing guaranteed than me making mistakes today. I won't make as many mistakes as you lot on here, or what you might get wrong, but we're all in it for the right reasons. I do it every time. I've done it, but I've done it as a coach. So I've had to pull both teams and say, listen, I'm not a ref, and I'll do my best, but we'll have a good time and all this. But yeah, there's a few things here that my oldest son has played football and rugby league. So he's played football in the winter, rugby league in the summer. He started to play rugby union, and obviously they don't have leagues. It's bizarre to me, that there should be an element of competition somewhere, but they don't do it at 7 and 8. And although rugby league's been really good, they can't say can't say a score, or they can't, and they've made that a little bit older. There's probably something in there that there should be more of. We should focus on getting how many games played. Really, that's the one. That's why I think that if every recruitment, they could almost get a touch team as well. So you've got a physical team and a touch team, and you're just playing. It's the thing that we've got is, like I said before, you've got two things. You've got players and parents thinking you have to win. Johnny needs to win or else he'll get down. I wish I had £1 for every game I lost. Fortunately, the coach and the player, but it's not about that. It's about, did you do your best? Did you enjoy it? Well, that's great. And what would you do better? Great, right, next time. Because the development bit is we probably play too many games before we've got the skill. But the one thing I want to do as a kid was play the game. I couldn't wait for the weekend. Training was good. I liked training. But if I played every day, I'd play every day. I just loved it. And that's what kids want to do. But the focus, again, I think we need a bit more education to coaching a little bit. Although you can't blame them. They're bringing stuff down from the scene on TV. I've even seen teams warming up as long as Super League teams. They're thinking, they're 9-year-old. They don't need all this. They need a bit more than just getting on with it, but they don't need all this. They're doing Super League warm-ups. They've seen it, they think they're doing the right thing. And you know what? It's good to see that they're organised, but the main thing is, are they all getting a touch? Are they all? Because the trouble part of the report was to say we're developing back rowers who aren't the fastest. They're strong, but they're not massively strong. They're not overly quick, and they're not got massive skills, but they can pass the ball. We've got some really good ones as well, and that's because of. One is when we play in the winter, but the other one is generally the game's dominated by 3 players, maybe 4 players, but it's 3 players. If you've got some massive player, it helps. 3 runs through everybody in the score form, we think we've won. It's the kids on the other side who are practicing the skill, and my team's a real good one. It's gone under the radar. Some great lads. They've never been the biggest side, but they always pass the ball and try to have a goal. And they've played some really good stuff. There'll be times they get beat, that they'll drop some ball, and we've probably lost to some teams who aren't as good overall rugby team as us, but it is what it is. But they've all progressed, and the times when you think, oh, maybe I've not helped them enough there, and I should have done this, and thinking, hang on, we've got 20 players, they're still coming training. They're not happy that they lost, but they're not coming. They're not. We've had one player in about 6 years who actually went to one of these clubs where he thought he was going to get signed on, and he didn't. But that was his parents' fault. That wasn't his fault. It's just silly. It's just the other bit is as well. You should play the game and enjoy it with your friends. So you've got these friends from your local area, wherever you are,
and you grow up together. You move through together.
The thing is, I cherish those memories now. The things that, I'll bump into people and say, remember that time we played at Stanley Manger, we won 1-0, and it was total mud. It was an awful game. I did a bit of space and running, but nothing happened. Anyway, this lad he got a drop goal, and everyone couldn't wait to get in the showers. You cherish that. We all, the times when we went to so-and-so 11 men because he didn't turn up, and I worry for some kids who've been moved around a few clubs, and then they just leave. They don't know even made it, and they just lose it. They just don't bother with the game, and it's huge. I think there's some of the things that should be celebrated. The people who've had a lifetime in the game, and mean a lot to everybody. That's huge. It's huge that they've done it. They've enjoyed, whether they're a player, a coach, supporter, whether you are an administrator. They should all be champions because you've got some special people. We just seem to go around a long way all the time.
I'm just reminiscing in my head with the memories of managing. You have to believe when you're talking about B teams. It could never have happened at any other point. In the year 2000 in Wakefield, there were enough players who wanted to play skater hockey, which is ice hockey on roller skates. And we had 2 teams at the 13 to 15 age group. And I was put in charge of this. What was that, 18, 19 at the time? What a foolish decision. And I was in charge of the B team, who were, we didn't win a game all season. We drew 1 game, which was great. And I've just remembered in my head the moment where Jamie Van Bellen, and the surname is
part of the family.
Indeed, scores the equaliser against Harrogate, and we draw 3-all. It's the only game we drew, and I just remember the celebrations we had. It was great, and that's what you need more of, is that joy. There is too much about winning, and too much. I know winning's important. It is important at a point, but parents giving kids money for scoring tries, doesn't you think?
I think the other thing that you sort of touched on as well is that when it comes to selection, we've gone for the biggest and not the most skillful. And that's partly because the Super League game itself, when it's gone full time, is looking for athletes. Mm. But we don't have to replicate that at the community level. That actually big kids have a role to play, but the rules that you should come up with and that's not to penalise what they can offer, but if that's over dominating, I watched them mentioned, I think the other week, watched an under-16 game the other week where 6 again was used, and you looked at the physical disparity between the 2 teams. We shouldn't be playing this role at this level, because all you do is encouraging the team that is already physically bigger to overpower a team that wants to play a little bit.
Yeah,
and
that's right.
The team that wants to play a little bit should be equal, if not more, valued than you just happen to be physically bigger at that age. And do we need to look at that as well, at the philosophies we're teaching?
I think so. I think it's part of the refereeing. I'm not having a go at referees here, but I remember some of the refs that we had when I was a junior, and the better ones, you always enjoyed it. Used to talk, and they didn't ref you the same. There were times that we'd be looking like we were going to hammer teams, and it'd be on the run going, now after the forward pass away, and like, hey, come on, get it in the middle, whatever it was. They found a way of coaching. It's about coaching. And I obviously see the referee assessed and all that. Part of the assessment should be, do you speak to players? Can you coach the game? Can you? That it should be that bit. Yeah, you could probably go 6 again there, but should you? Should you do that? There's another bit to it. It's I think with the physicality is a real positive thing within the game, but they're the players that get neglected. That's why I started the rugby school, because I was, like every other kid, I'd have been frightened to death by certain players who, we were 10 years old and he had a beard and he used to beat us up. And he was thinking, how's he got that big and how can I? But, that player, when we got to under 16s, I didn't recognise it the same player. He'd got nowhere because he kept running through everyone because he growled and everyone jumped out of the way, which is no fault of his own. But he never got taught anything else where he could have played a different position. He's now too small to play at prop or wherever he was, looks forward, because everyone's bigger than him. His physicality is probably a bit less than everybody else, and he can't pass, or he can't do this, or he doesn't really read much, or he doesn't know where to run, and we let those players down. So while we should encourage physicality, or, you're 10 foot tall and they're 2 foot tall, can he pass? Does he know when to pass? Is it all about him just scoring 5 tries and you're winning 5-0 every week? Or are you going to give a bit more? And that's the hard bit, and I've seen some good ones as well. I think there's a junior team, about under 13, they had one, and used to bring him off. So he'd score, they'd bring him off, and then he'd encourage him, and then he'd take, but he'd still do his bit, but they had to spell him just because it weren't right for him all the time, and it certainly wasn't right for the kids who looked up and didn't know higher than his sock. And it were like, I just thought you've got it right. You're doing it right, and you're encouraging the player as well to one, do your bit, but like, can we draw that man next time? And you could see him talking on the touchline. It was great to see. I just thought there's not enough of that. But you can't. Thing is, the kids as well, they're dead set want to win. Mm-hmm. So even if there's no scores, there's no publish, we still love the write-up. That bit's all gone now. But they love to win, and they know all the rules generally. That they're not like most of them now. They know everything. They're 6 again or whatever. They'll be calling it out, but they know the score and they know they're going to win. Which is nice, but it's not the end.